democracy is in a peculiar state. On the one hand, 2024 will see more people vote in democratic elections worldwide than at any other time in human history. However, there is also no doubt that democracy is in peril, with the home of modern parliaments, the United Kingdom, mired in a seemingly perpetual crisis in which the Conservative Party have regularly flirted with breaking international law over the past few years, while the United States witnessed the incitement of insurrection in January 2021 to challenge the result of a democratic election. Countries like Hungary and the European Union have major political issues, with Viktor Orban having become a quasi-dictator there. As a result of all of this, there is a particular level of scrutiny in 2024 on the election scheduled to take place in the world's largest democracy, India. If democracy is to survive in the 21st century, it is vital that it continues to prosper here. And yet, there are growing concerns about the Hindu nationalist bent of the ruling powers there and what this means for India's democracy as a whole. When are the elections? The exact date of the India elections are still being speculated on as of late February, but it's assumed that they will be held in April or May 2024. Admittedly, there are good reasons for the issues in setting a date. It isn't easy to manage the logistics of national elections in a country of nearly 1.5 billion people. While the date remains to be chosen, what is at stake is clear. These elections will decide who will control the next parliament, and so India's government for the next 5 years, as well as who will be the Prime Minister during that time. The main election will focus on determining who the 543 delegates within the Lok Sabha, or the House of the People, will be. On this rests the decision as to who the Prime Minister of the country is for much of the remainder of the 2020s. The Lok Sabha is the lower house of the Indian Federal Parliament, although it should be noted that as a de facto federal state, India has many layers of regional government on top of its national parliament and leaders. The main players. It is clear to all who the main figure in this election will be. Narendra Modi, the head of the Bharatiya Janata Party, the Indian People's Party, also known by its acronym the BJP, has been the Prime Minister of India since 2014. The election focuses on whether or not anyone can come even close to unseating him. As we will see, opinion polls suggest this is unlikely, and there have been repeated news reports in recent times of efforts by Modi's government to exploit the law to the fullest to undermine his rivals in the run-up to the election. Few people would claim that Modi and the BJP are intent on making these elections unfree and unfair, but there is also little doubt that they are willing to bend the rules to the maximum extent possible in order to win, much like the Republican Party have been doing in the United States for many years, seeking to disenfranchise voters in key areas and use all mechanisms possible to benefit themselves at the expense of their opponents. The Indian National Congress will be the main opposition, a party which dominated India's politics during the 20th century, forming nearly every government between independence in 1947 and the end of the 1980s. It is led by Mallikarjun Kharge, the leader of the opposition since 2021. He and the Indian National Congress are the leaders of the Indian National Developmental Inclusive Alliance, an umbrella organisation of 27 different parties from across this vast country. A great many of these lean to the left or even the far left, and although there are large disparities and a huge patchwork of parties involved, generally speaking, the election comes down to a choice between the left-leaning, secular Indian National Congress-led National Developmental Inclusive Alliance and the right-wing, Hindu nationalist BJP-led National Democratic Alliance of Narendra Modi. The issues. To say that there are a lot of issues involved in the Indian elections would be an understatement. This is a country which is classed as a subcontinent and which is home to more than 1/6 of the world's population. Some people live in rural villages troubled by climate change. Others live in smog-clogged megacities like New Delhi, while others live in towns on the slopes of the Himalayas. A country with such a diverse geography and set of problems leads to different groups within different areas having very different problems and concerns which they want addressed. Distinct groups within Indian society also have their own concerns. For instance, India has a major problem with violence against women, while farming communities have issues around water shortages. There are always ethnic issues at work in India's national politics as well. People living in Gujarat or Bengal have different cultures, histories and social mores to people in Uttar Pradesh or Rajasthan. Perhaps the most foremost issue of all will be religion. Despite efforts back in 1947 and 1948 to divide the British Raj along religious lines into India and what became Pakistan and Bangladesh, as well as huge population transfers between the newly independent countries to make India more uniformly Hindu and Pakistan and Bangladesh more Muslim, India has still retained a very large Muslim minority, approximately 215 million to be precise. Narendra Modi, to be blunt, is a Hindu nationalist who before he became Prime Minister was complicit in the 2002 Gujarat riots, which saw over 1,000 Muslims killed in the state of Gujarat when he was governor thereof. If there is a flashpoint in this election, it could be religious tensions. Opinion polls. Opinion polls as of February 2024 are fairly unanimous in claiming that Modi's BJP-led National Democratic Alliance will win a clear majority in this election. These suggest the alliance will claim around 335 of the 543 seats up for play in the Lok Sabha. This will constitute a slight decline in its representation, with Modi's alliance having won just over 350 seats in the last election. Nevertheless, if these opinion polls are correct, it will augur a continuation of Modi's time as Prime Minister, setting the stage for him to potentially become the most significant political figure in post-independence India. Furthermore, even if they are out by some amount, it will still lead to Modi's alliance returning to power. What the implications of that will be for India's democracy in the long term, and perhaps more importantly for religious tensions within the country, remains to be seen.